My daughter's music teacher has been secretly recording her private lessons. When I stumbled across that online course titled Advanced Piano Techniques with Real Students for $500, I never expected to see my own 14-year-old daughter Grace performing in the promotional video. There she was, sitting at Mr. Clayton's Steinway grand piano, working through the exact Chopin piece we'd been paying $200 per hour for him to teach her privately. The course description promised exclusive access to genuine masterclass sessions and real-time problem-solving with advanced students. What it didn't mention was that one of those students was my daughter, and those exclusive sessions were our supposedly private lessons that I'd been shelling out $800 a month for. I sat there in my home office at 11 p.m., laptop, screen glowing, feeling like someone had just punched me in the stomach. Grace had been taking lessons with Mr. Clayton for 8 months. 8 months of driving 30 minutes each way to his fancy studio in Westchester County. 8 months of him explaining how his personalized methodology required extensive video documentation for progress analysis. 8 months of me feeling proud that we could afford what he called investment-level music education for our daughter's obvious talent. The video quality was professional. Multiple camera angles, crystal clear audio, even graphics overlaying Grace's hand positions. This wasn't some amateur recording. Mr. Clayton's voice provided commentary, breaking down Grace's technique for his online audience while she played, completely unaware that strangers would be studying her every movement. He'd turned our daughter into unpaid talent for his side business. I clicked through the course modules, my anger building with each familiar scene. There was Grace working on scales, Grace struggling with a difficult passage, Grace receiving what I thought was individualized feedback. The timestamps showed these were filmed during our paid sessions where Mr. Clayton had always positioned the recording equipment as purely for her educational benefit. What made it worse was realizing how carefully orchestrated this deception had been. The courses were sold under his company name, Virtuoso Learning Academy, rather than his personal teaching brand. His face was prominently featured, but student faces were strategically angled or partially obscured in the preview videos, just enough to hide their identities from casual browsers, but clearly visible to anyone who knew them personally. The betrayal cut deeper as I recognized other details. Grace's favorite practice room, the Steinway she'd grown to love, even the specific music stand adjustments Mr. Clayton always made. All of it had been staged as the perfect learning environment, not just for her development, but for content creation. Every breakthrough moment we'd celebrated had been recorded and packaged as educational material for strangers. Update. Just found out this morning that at least 12 other parents in our area have been paying similar rates for what they thought were exclusive private lessons. Grace is devastated after I had to explain why strangers online have been watching her learn piano. Anyone else dealt with something like this? Mr. Clayton came highly recommended through our local parent Facebook groups. Sarah Chen had posted about how her son Nathan's piano skills had absolutely skyrocketed under his instruction. The studio website showcased impressive credentials: Juilliard graduate, former accompanist for several Broadway productions, testimonials from parents whose children had gone on to prestigious music programs. His rate of $200 per hour seemed steep, but the results spoke for themselves in those carefully curated success stories. Grace had been playing piano since she was 6, working with a sweet elderly teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, who charged $40 per house lesson. But by age 13, Grace was clearly outgrowing what Mrs. Rodriguez could offer. She was playing Bach inventions, tackling intermediate Chopin, showing the kind of musical intuition that made other parents at recitals ask which teacher she studied with. When Mrs. Rodriguez herself suggested Grace needed more advanced instruction, we started researching options. Mr. Clayton's consultation felt like a revelation. He assessed Grace's playing with the kind of detailed analysis we'd never experienced. He identified specific technical weaknesses, outlined a comprehensive development plan, and painted a picture of what Grace could achieve with proper guidance. When he explained that serious instruction required detailed documentation, video analysis being standard practice at conservatory level, it sounded perfectly reasonable. His studio reinforced the professional atmosphere. Located in a converted barn on his property, it featured a gorgeous Steinway Model M, professional acoustic treatment, and yes, an impressive array of recording equipment. He explained the cameras captured multiple angles for thorough technique analysis, while the high-quality microphones ensured he could review subtle musical phrasing later. Everything was positioned as cutting-edge pedagogy. The paperwork seemed standard: liability waivers, payment agreements, and a video documentation consent form that authorized recording for educational analysis and progress tracking. The language was vague enough that I signed without much thought, trusting that a Juilliard-trained professional understood appropriate boundaries. The first few months seemed to justify every penny. Grace's playing improved dramatically. Mr. Clayton identified and corrected technical habits that had been limiting her progress for years. He introduced repertoire that challenged her appropriately, provided detailed practice strategies, and sent follow-up emails with specific exercises tailored to what they'd worked on each week. I felt like we'd finally found someone who truly understood how to develop Grace's talent. What I didn't realize was how carefully he'd crafted the parent experience. He scheduled lessons so that parents rarely overlapped, minimizing opportunities for casual conversations that might reveal inconsistencies. His waiting area featured classical music magazines and soundproofing that prevented eavesdropping on other lessons. Most brilliantly, he'd convinced each family that their child's program was uniquely designed, making it unlikely anyone would compare notes about similar experiences. That Saturday night discovery led to a sleepless weekend of investigation that uncovered the full scope of Mr. Clayton's operation. His main website, which I'd thoroughly researched before hiring him, presented a straightforward private instruction business. But digging deeper revealed a parallel online education empire operating under Virtuoso Learning Academy, a brand I'd never connected to his personal teaching practice. Beyond the $500 Advanced Piano Techniques course featuring Grace, was selling multiple instructional packages across different platforms. His own subscription website offered monthly access to live lesson archives for $79. Teachable hosted his master class series, starting at $299. Udemy featured his Real Student Transformations for $199. Each course prominently advertised authentic student interactions and unscripted learning moments as key selling points. I spent Sunday morning creating fake accounts and purchasing access to several courses. The content was sickeningly familiar. There was Grace, but also other students I recognized from the studio's waiting area. Kids whose parents, like me, thought they were paying premium rates for individualized attention. The courses had generated hundreds of reviews with customers praising the realistic learning scenarios and genuine teacher-student dynamics. The marketing was sophisticated. Customer testimonials raved about watching real breakthrough moments and learning from authentic struggle and success. One 5-star review specifically mentioned Grace's section. The young girl working through the Chopin Prelude shows exactly what proper technique development looks like. You can see her confidence building measure by measure. Monday morning, I called 3 other mothers from Grace's school whose daughters also studied with Mr. Clayton. The conversations were devastating. Jennifer had been paying $250 per hour because her daughter Maya was working on college audition preparation. Lisa was paying $175 for her son's accelerated development program. Sarah, who'd originally recommended him, had signed up for his competition training intensive at $300 per session. None of them knew their children's struggles and breakthroughs were being packaged and sold online. Worse, each family believed their arrangement was uniquely expensive because of specialized programming. Maya's audition prep was identical to Grace's advanced technique development. Same repertoire, same exercises, same teaching methods, all recorded and monetized. By Tuesday, I'd documented everything. Screenshots of course content, payment records, email exchanges where Mr. Clayton had emphasized the exclusive nature of our arrangement. I'd also found his business registration showing Virtuoso Learning Academy LLC, with revenue streams clearly extending far beyond private instruction. The breakthrough came Wednesday when I discovered his email marketing automation. By subscribing to his mailing list under a fake name, I received welcome sequences promoting his courses. One email subject line read, "Watch real students overcome common piano challenges. Live lessons available." The preview text mentioned unscripted sessions with advancing students and authentic problem-solving demonstrations. He was literally advertising our children's learning struggles as entertainment and education for strangers. His customer data revealed the scope of exploitation. Over 2,000 course enrollments across all platforms, generating approximately $400,000 in annual online revenue while maintaining his private teaching practice. The Real Student Transformations course alone had 847 active subscribers, paying monthly fees to access content featuring our children. Thursday afternoon, I consulted with Patricia Marsh, a lawyer specializing in privacy and intellectual property law. The consultation was enlightening and infuriating. While music teachers could record lessons for legitimate educational purposes, selling those recordings commercially without explicit parental consent crossed multiple legal lines. Using children's images and performances for profit without proper releases violated both privacy laws and child protection statutes. Patricia explained that the vague consent form we'd signed wouldn't hold up in court. The language about educational analysis couldn't reasonably be interpreted to include commercial distribution to thousands of paying customers. The deception was compounded by his deliberate misrepresentation of exclusivity while simultaneously mass marketing our children's content. We spent Friday gathering evidence and reaching out to other affected families. Each conversation revealed new layers of deception. Some parents had been told their children were being prepared for elite conservatory programs, others for international competitions. All were paying different rates based on supposedly customized curricula that turned out to be identical. Content repackaged with different marketing language. Saturday's confrontation was scheduled as Grace's regular lesson time. I arrived carrying a manila folder containing printed screenshots, legal consultation notes, and documented evidence of his commercial operation. Grace settled at the piano while I remained in the viewing area, folder in my lap. When Grace began her warm-up exercises, I cleared my throat and pulled out the first page, a screenshot of the Advanced Piano Techniques course featuring her image prominently in the promotional material. The color drained from Mr. Clayton's face as I laid out page after page of evidence. Course descriptions, customer reviews mentioning specific students, revenue reports from his various platforms, marketing emails promoting real student content. His immediate response was predictable damage control. He claimed the recordings were educational resources for the broader music community, that parents had implicitly consented through the documentation agreement, that online sharing was standard industry practice for advanced pedagogy. When I pointed out that he'd explicitly promised exclusive private instruction while secretly operating a content mill, his tone shifted to defensiveness. He argued that families were receiving exceptional value regardless of additional revenue streams, that the high quality of instruction justified any supplementary commercial activity, that other teachers charged similar rates without providing the same level of detailed feedback and analysis. The conversation deteriorated when I informed him that multiple families were consulting lawyers and that we expected immediate cessation of all commercial use involving our children. He became increasingly agitated, insisting that removing the content would damage his reputation and destroy educational resources that benefit the broader musical community. His final response revealed the true nature of his priorities. Rather than apologizing for the deception or acknowledging the violation of trust, he threatened to pursue families for breach of contract if they terminated their agreements early, claiming that the video documentation represented significant studio investment that parents were obligated to support through completing their lesson packages. Update: met with 5 other families yesterday and we're filing a joint complaint. Mr. Clayton has been frantically deleting course content since our confrontation, but we have everything documented. Grace doesn't want to play piano right now, which breaks my heart. Has anyone here ever had their kid exploited like this? The legal process moved faster than I expected, largely because Mr. Clayton's operation was so extensively documented. His own marketing materials provided perfect evidence of commercial exploitation. Within 3 weeks, we had restraining orders, preventing further distribution of content featuring our children. The investigation revealed the staggering scope of his business model. Financial records subpoenaed during litigation showed he'd been generating approximately $400,000 annually from online course sales while maintaining the private lesson facade that funded his studio and equipment. 15 families had been paying premium rates for what they believed were exclusive services, unknowingly subsidizing the creation of commercial content featuring their children. Mr. Clayton's response was to hire Thompson & Associates, an expensive Manhattan law firm that specialized in educational institution defense. They argued that modern music education inherently involves technology and documentation, claiming that parents who accepted video recording had implicitly consented to educational use. They attempted to characterize his online courses as teaching, demonstrations, rather than commercial exploitation. The argument fell apart when our legal team presented evidence of profit margins, customer testimonials, and marketing language deliberately designed to sell intimate learning moments as entertainment. His website copy promising private, individualized instruction directly contradicted the mass distribution of lesson content to paying subscribers. Customer reviews praising authentic student reactions and genuine emotional breakthroughs proved he was commodifying children's vulnerability. By the 6th week, settlement discussions were underway. The case had attracted media attention after Jennifer Martinez, a journalist with the Westchester County Journal-News, picked up the story through social media posts from affected families. Her investigative piece titled, "When Private Lessons Go Public, Local Music Teachers Sold Student Recordings Online," went viral within hours of publication. Other music teachers in the area began distancing themselves from Mr. Clayton, emphasizing their privacy policies and consent procedures in carefully worded statements to the press. The Music Teachers National Association issued emergency guidelines about appropriate use of lesson recordings, while the New York State Education Department launched an investigation into his teaching credentials. Grace's recovery proved more complex than the legal resolution. She'd been genuinely excited about her musical progress and proud of mastering challenging pieces like the Chopin Prelude in E minor that had been featured prominently in his course materials. Discovering that strangers had been watching her struggle through difficult passages, analyzing her technique, and discussing her emotional responses to music felt like a profound violation of privacy. The psychological impact was significant. Grace began having anxiety attacks before practicing, worried that someone might be watching or recording. She refused to play when visitors were in the house and started closing her bedroom door during practice sessions, something she'd never done before. The joy she'd always found in music was contaminated by the knowledge that her most vulnerable, learning moments had been entertainment for hundreds of strangers. We found a new teacher, Elena Patterson, who came recommended by our original teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. Mrs. Patterson's approach was refreshingly transparent. She maintained strict privacy policies, used recording only when specifically requested for practice reference, and emphasized that lessons belonged to students, not instructors. Her first session with Grace focused entirely on rebuilding trust rather than musical instruction. The other families were dealing with similar challenges. Maya Chen had developed such severe performance anxiety that she quit her school's jazz ensemble. Nathan Rodriguez refused to participate in his church's Christmas pageant piano accompaniment. Several children demanded to know exactly how their recordings had been used and whether their friends or classmates might have seen them online. Parents were questioning everything about the digital age and child privacy. How many other normal activities involved hidden commercial exploitation? Were school performances being recorded and distributed without consent? What about sports coaching, tutoring, or art classes that documented progress for educational purposes? The settlement negotiations included non-disclosure agreements, but we successfully argued that public awareness was necessary to prevent similar exploitation. The final resolution included substantial financial compensation, mandatory deletion of all content featuring our children, and Mr. Clayton's agreement to cease all teaching activities involving minors. Update: settlement finalized today. Can't share specific amounts due to legal agreements, but we're satisfied with the resolution. Mr. Clayton's studio is permanently closed, and he's facing regulatory action from state education boards. Grace started with a new teacher last week and is slowly rediscovering her love for piano. Would you trust online music lessons after something like this? 8 months later, the music education community has fundamentally changed its approach to student privacy and consent. Professional organizations now require explicit, detailed consent for any recording that might be shared beyond immediate educational purposes. Music teachers must disclose all potential uses of lesson content upfront, with separate agreements for any commercial or promotional applications. Grace is playing again, working on a beautiful Debussy arabesque with Mrs. Patterson. Her technique remains excellent, and her musical intuition is still strong, but the violation of trust initially shattered her confidence in ways that extended far beyond piano lessons. She's more aware now of how her image and performance might be used, which represents both valuable awareness and unfortunate loss of innocence. The settlement funds have been placed in a trust for Grace's music education through college, including summer programs and competition entry fees. While we can't undo the exploitation, we can ensure it finances her continued musical development on her own terms, with full knowledge and control over how her artistic growth is documented and shared. Mr. Clayton's teaching license was permanently revoked by the New York State Education Department after a 6-month investigation. He's prohibited from working with minors in any educational capacity and faces ongoing civil penalties for violations of child protection statutes. The business closure affected a few families who genuinely valued his instruction, highlighting how his considerable talent as a teacher made the exploitation particularly devastating. The broader investigation revealed this wasn't an isolated incident. Similar cases have been reported in California, Texas, and Florida involving music teachers, art instructors, and athletic coaches who monetize student content without proper consent. A federal task force is now developing standardized guidelines for educational content creation involving minors. Other parents have expressed gratitude for our willingness to pursue the case publicly despite the emotional cost. Grace initially resented the attention and publicity, but she's gradually come to understand that speaking out protected other children from similar exploitation. She's developed a mature perspective on privacy rights that will serve her well in an increasingly digital world. The experience taught our family to trust our instincts about exploitation, even when it's packaged as professional development or educational innovation. Grace learned that her artistic development belongs to her, not to adults who might profit from documenting it. We both learned that premium prices and prestigious credentials don't necessarily indicate ethical practices. Mrs. Patterson's teaching style emphasizes student agency and consent in ways we never encountered before. Grace chooses when lessons are recorded, reviews footage before it's saved, and maintains control over any documentation of her progress. This approach has actually accelerated her development because she feels safe to take risks and make mistakes, without worrying about judgment from unseen audiences. Today, Grace plays because she loves music, not because someone is capturing her progress for commercial use. Her lessons are genuinely private, her struggles and breakthroughs authentically her own. She's developing as both a musician and a young person who understands her right to privacy and consent, lessons that extend far beyond the piano bench. The legal victory set important precedents for educational privacy rights, but the personal victory is watching Grace rediscover joy in music without the shadow of exploitation. That's worth more than any amount of professional recording equipment or online recognition could ever be.